Okay, so this is what I wanted to say as well. I know a lot of my YouTube videos again are sex topics and are revolving. I was gonna say revolving around sex and some of the things that I've learned through the years. When I was a young woman, um, mm, this is okay. So I'm gonna try to do this as best as possible. I don't know how I don't know how, you know, hmm, hmm. I don't know how this is gonna iterate, but I'm gonna try to get it out as best as possible. So I talked about my first experiences with sex and how old I was. And the first time I truly got exposed to sex, I was about 7 years old. And yes, it was by people that were older than me, whether they were adults or whether they were teenagers. And by that, I mean that some people would have sex right in front of me. Some people would have sex in the bed with me. Some people would put porn on the TV for me. Some people just grew up listening to that type of music where it was just heavily sex based. And obviously, from very young, people were exposing me to it and basically training me and telling me that it was my mission in life to sleep with these people, and do these things. And I was so young. And somebody was telling me, if I wanted to suck on some breast. And I was seeing the differences. Like, I was seeing what that meant. So, a 13-year-old girl getting exposed to sex with somebody a little bit older than her or even the same age as her. And I was saying that when there is a type of double standard, there is. A man will be noticed for rape when he rapes another boy or another woman, more than a woman is exposed for raping a boy or another girl. And it's shameful to say, but it happens in both of those contexts. A woman can rape a girl or take advantage of a girl. A woman can rape a boy and take advantage of a boy. And yes, a boy can obviously rape another boy. Not obviously, but it is more obvious. It's obvious that he can rape a woman. That's the most obvious one. And it's obvious that he can, it's more obvious as well because of the double standard that he can rape another boy, right? But in both these contexts, both these men, the rapists, both these people, the woman that rapes a man and rapes a girl, and the man that rapes a girl and rapes a man, the more obvious one is the man, but not the woman. No matter the context, it's never as obvious when a woman is doing it to a boy or a girl. It's never as obvious, especially not with a girl, because a girl, it would be like, this is sexy. And with with a with a boy, it would be like, okay, well, that's sexy too because that's the first woman he's having sex with. That's sexy. And so they'll say like, oh yeah, that's like a very sexy thing. But it's not sexy if it makes the person uncomfortable. And it's not sexy if the woman or the man has flashbacks about it. And so when you're saying, oh yeah, it's sexy like a girl sucking on somebody's boobs, it's the same thing as like getting like a young 13-year-old boy to suck on an older woman's breast. But they would say, yes, it's sexy. Until it's not, until he gets older and recognizes what happened. That she's like 20, he's like 13 years old. He doesn't know because he's so young. It's like anything that happens sexually around you when you're so young, they don't know. Especially if you expose it to them. Like you purposely expose it to them. And you purposely like expose this thing to them on purpose. They don't know. They don't know. Obviously, the goal is not to expose that to your kids, but there are parents that do it. Now, if you grow up with parents that are like into that culture, casinos, sex clubs, sex toy clubs, strip clubs, clubs in general, anywhere where this lifestyle is normal, anything where like sex work is normal, obviously they're going to normalize it, and then they normalize it around their kid, and that happens to be me. And the culture that I grew up in, and even the community that I grew up in, there are multiple people like that in the world. So now they're exposing you to multiple things. And I just wanted to say that's real. And I just don't want, my children thinking like, I just want them to have the information. And if anybody put them in that position as well, I don't want them to think because somebody sexually took advantage of them that they are lesser and that they need to commit suicide. I just wouldn't want them to think that. Like, you're a lesser being as a girl, or you're a lesser being as a man because a woman took advantage of you and sexually assaulted you. You're a lesser being of a woman because a man or a woman took advantage of you. Especially, obviously, a man doing that is, again, really obvious. But it's not so obvious for women and women. They'll say like, oh yeah, it's so hot. But it's the same thing. Like, if a man, the bias is that if a man told you to suck his penis, you would feel very uncomfortable. And then if he forced you to suck his penis as a man, you would feel very uncomfortable. So it's the same thing. Like, a girl is being convinced to touch on another woman and touch her genitals. It's the same thing. All of it is the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just that it's happening in a context for women, and some of it is happening in context for men. But it's still the same thing, in that kind of double-cross standard. It is the same thing. And obviously, if it makes you uncomfortable, even like a parent exposing you to sex, if it makes you uncomfortable, it makes you feel uncomfortable. There's nothing like, it's just no ifs, ands, or buts. That's why when you do have sex, you don't coddle your kid. Sex is bad. That's another type of indoctrination. Sex is bad. Never have sex ever in your life. I'm going to abuse you, punch you, hit you, smack you if you ever have sex. That's another type of indoctrination. That's not normal. But you also have to protect your kid. Don't expose them to sex too soon. That psychologically scars them. It psychologically damages them. And guess what? When you as a parent expose your kids to sex, they go out and expose other kids to sex. They do. If you start exposing them to sex, now say there's multiple parents doing it. Now multiple kids are exposing each other. And then multiple kids are touching each other before they're ready to touch each other. And now they're like, oh my God, now I'm old enough to understand and I feel weird. When I was young, it wasn't only just my male babysitter that came on to me and tried to get me to perform fellatio for him, but there were older female babysitters that would lean over and try to kiss me. As a young girl, yes. They were a little bit older than me. They're leaning over trying to get me to kiss them. Either they weren't successful or sometimes they were successful. Yes, it is a real thing. That is a real thing. They're all just like, exposing each other to sex now. And, even the kids that are convincing you to touch them, when I was in middle school, kids would convince me to skip school, to go to houses that were empty. There were no parents there, so that people could sleep with each other. And I remember the first time I was in a bunk bed with a guy, and he's like, yeah, sleep with me. And I wouldn't sleep with him. I felt so uncomfortable. He was peer pressuring me so hard as well. And I didn't want to. In that moment, I didn't want to. Sometimes, if I'm like naive enough, maybe I will, maybe I won't. But that's actually the age that I became the most conscious of what was happening. That's the age that I recognized that, like, sex things happening, is a serious thing. Before then, I'm too young. Maybe my brain is not even fully formed as it should be. But as I'm becoming 13 years old, I did notice. I'm telling myself, oh my God, I noticed that, having sex outside of marriage is wrong. That's when I became conscious. That's when I knew what it was. But before then, I'm watching my parents have sex. They're in the bed with me having sex. I hear them in the other room, they're having sex. They're putting porn on the screen, they're having sex. I'm too young to know any of that. And so I urge, like, just protecting your kid a little bit. Because when they're young and then they're going through sexual interactions, that's where the scarring happens, because they get older and they recognize it. And they're like, oh my God, wow, that was really weird. And then they feel weird because they're conscious of it. They're like, oh, wow. Obviously, you get older and you move on and you learn from it. But, and the responsibility, if you have a child, you're supposed to protect them. Now, you're not supposed to demonize them. Again, different story. I grew up in a life where I had the woman that raised me, she was very hypersexual. Nothing but sex stuff. And then the father that raised me, he was secret undercover into really sex stuff. I think because overtly he was supposed to be a representative of he was overly supposed to be a representative of holiness, you would say. And again, just what it meant. He was obviously a dark version. You would call it dark. You would call it false light. Basically, the scaring, the indoctrination of cultists. Like, if you have sex, you're gonna die. You're bad. You're dirty. You're disgusting. You're all of that. You're crazy. I'm gonna kill you. That's the extreme version of what he was. But the whole time, it's equivalent of like a pastor touching kids, because they suppress themselves so sexually that they're just really, really, really into the sex stuff of children or inappropriate people in their lives. Their daughter, their son, their sister, their distant relative, their niece. You know what I'm saying? So on one side, I had the hyper-under-sexual, hyper-religious people. And then on another side, I had my mother, who was just open about sex stuff, but in a very inappropriate way. Like teaching the girl how to have sex, how to open her legs, how to dress in a sexual way, So it's just two extremes. They're both extremes. And you don't want either. And it's the same thing. Like, you don't want a woman raping a man. You don't want a woman raping another woman. You don't want a man raping a man. And you don't want another man raping another woman. None of it is okay. And so I just wanted to put that in the iteration. Obviously, I always feel guilty. But obviously, the victim who gets raped or touched in any type of way is going to always feel guilty. They're going to feel like it was their fault. And it's not. They're always going to have that complex, no matter what it is. Oh, it's my fault, it's my fault, it's my fault, and it's not their fault. So just for anybody that, has gone through that, and obviously we're living in a mad world where now these people are just so, again, they're openly worshiping Satan. They just don't want to be, destroyed in what they're doing. They love what they got going on in secret. And they don't want to be exposed for that. They don't want to be exposed for any of it. And it's always going to be weird to touch somebody that's not your kid. It's always going to be weird to convince a girl to do something that she doesn't want to do. It's always going to be weird to look at her body. It's always going to be weird for a woman to do that to a man. Like a 20-year-old woman sleeping with a 13-year-old boy. That's always going to be weird. A 16-year-old boy sleeping with an 18-year-old, 8-year-old girl. That's always going to be weird. All of it is going to be weird. Even same age kids touching each other. That's always going to be a little bit weird. Whoever taught them to do that. But the truth about that one is that they're just too young to know. And so don't go around saying like, oh, it's so sexy for a boy, because it's true, there's a bias. Why is it sexy for girls to touch each other, right? And then why is it sexy for a boy to have his first experience with an older woman? Why is that sexy? Until the boy says he's uncomfortable, right? Until he says, I am uncomfortable, then it's not so sexy. And when he's mad, he's mad. And that's real. And they take it a lot more seriously. Because the bias is that when a man gets upset, they take it a lot more seriously than when a woman gets upset as well. And so they'll start taking, when a man starts raging and blacking out, he starts blacking, raging, punching. That's when they're taking him very seriously. They know that he's not playing any games. But when a woman is blacking out for the same thing, they're like, eh. So both of these biases are wrong, by the way. Like, I'm not going to take her seriously. She'll get over it. No. 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 And in the future, for anybody that has ever gone through this, I just don't want you guys to like think to yourself, I'm going to commit suicide because I grew up in a life full of predators. I don't want you to feel like if you see a lie, it's a lie, you know? If you see a religious person and they have weird sex habits, it's a lie. But if you see a person that is just forcing you into sex things, no matter what, they're just getting so deep into these dark sex things to the point where it's also scary. You have the right to choose and be exactly what you want to be. And if you want what you want, that's what you want. Now, I'm not saying that you can't live your own life in your own free will. You can. You can, but don't force it on people. Don't extort it onto people. Extort out of people. Don't do any of it in the sense where it's taking somebody's free will away. Do what you want to do on your own time, how you want to do it in respect of your respectability, but don't take anybody's free will away. Don't take anybody's free will away. Do not take away anybody's free will away. And I wish I had somebody to tell me this, and so I'm going to put this on YouTube, and hopefully in the future, if anybody's struggling, that they can watch this video and just understand that what I'm saying, nothing that anybody's doing to you is normal. But if you go through this situation, it's normal. And yes, it does get better in the future. You just gotta fight really, really hard if somebody's trying to get you to commit suicide, get you arrested or killed, because you're exposing things that they don't want to be exposed, or even a system. Now in cults are very religious, but you see them and they also have weird, creepy sex stuff going on. Like, we're really religious, but they're really actually worshiping demons and all that stuff. So if you're ever in this case, like you're ever in a cult, or people who are kind of cultish in that mindset, where they start like, they worship demons, they're having weird orgies, but then they're saying they're worshiping God. If you ever find yourself in that situation, just know that you are pure. And if you want to get out of it, you are pure. You're pure, and God loves you. And obviously, you're gonna get out of it. And God, I know it's fucked up, but God put you in that thing to blow that shit up. Okay? All right.